We are live. Hello, everyone. Friday night, and you know what that is. So I am honored and just a thrill to have a returning guest. I think she is like almost, part of the family here. Sue, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited about this topic. And thank you that I'm almost part of the family. I'm so
Well,
happy.
you are part of the family. I mean, and it's you were one of the what I would call the foundation pillars.
Thank you.
We've been that long time. I just want to say hello to everyone in the chat room. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Chris, Claudette. Boy, y'all just hey. So, Sue, the seven principles.
Yes, the seven principles.
Um, it's my contention that most people go through life allowing fate to have its destiny, and because of the ignorance that they are not aware of the knowledge that their lives could be far more different than what they are. What say you?
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, the whole concept that they were brought up with to look outside of ourselves for our truths and for our happiness and for, I mean, this is why they spend their whole lives doing just what you were saying, because they're looking outside of themselves for their truth, when it's the inner life that's really where you're going to find your connection to God, to source, whatever you want to call it. And I cannot call, this is my problem with the Hermetica, the word he, it never, it's completely doesn't like to be known by gender. But anyway, so yeah.
And it doesn't like to be known because that's one of the principles of gender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gender is here, not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Gender is everywhere.
How do you work when you work with people? How do you begin? Or let me just step back. How did you become aware of the seven principles?
Actually, it was, I'm not 100% sure if it was through, I follow the Gematria Effect News, like the Zachary Hubbard for the Gematria, and it may have come through there. It was about a year and a half ago, I stumbled on or maybe a year ago, I don't remember, the seven Hermetic principles. I'm like, oh, what is this? And I started reading them and reading about Hermeticism. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me, this is what I've come to believe, that this is the process. Because what it's really all about, when you look at the Hermetica, and what you covered all week is basically broken down into these seven principles. It's all about self-actualization.
Yes. Yes, it really is. I'm 63, still look like I'm 45, but that's cool. But here's the thing. Well, you know why? Because I've been applying these principles in my life for decades, never really knowing it.
Right.
I mean, that's what gets me.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? When you find them, that's why you're so wired about this, because when you find it, it's just like me. It's just like, oh my God, this is it.
And it ties, I tell people all the time, this was the God spell. But the thing about it is, particularly in the New Testament, and I'll just take it from my point of view, Sue, of how the background I came out of, is replete. The writings of Paul are replete with Hermes.
Yes.
I mean, the Christ message is Hermes.
Yes, you're right. Exactly. The Christ message is Hermes. The golden rule, when you put the seven Hermetic principles all together, basically it's the golden rule.
It is.
Do unto others.
It really is. Yeah. And right before we came on, folks, we're talking, and the revelation that continues to flow from these readings is, wow, it's awesome. And when it hit me today, and it was live, as you saw, the thing about judgment, we've been taught wrongly that because of some ill-defined version of sin, which has never been defined and which Christ never said, we go through life condemning ourselves.
Yeah.
Never realizing that we're condemning God. I went, whoa. That's the judgment.
Here's the irony in this. Really what where the judgment comes from is the core wounding, which is your separation from source.
Yes.
So we come in, that is the quote unquote original sin. That's what we're talking about, is that we feel that we're separated from source and we're not good enough. So it's that constant, that's the core fundamental wound. And I believe, that it would be hard for it to go away when you're in the physical body. You're always going to be in that process of learning how to heal that core wound.
Yeah. As you were talking, so many answers. I was talking to my wife just before we came on, and I said, for the fact that we came from what was defined as the happy place, and I think that's a perfect description of it. I mean, if you're always happy, that's a happy place. I think so many people become anesthetized that they're trying to get back to that happy place. But the fact that we existed before we came in here, and the way that it was described as the soul is being entombed into the body, it's wow. I mean, it paints a picture.
Well, here's a little bit of a different perspective on that. Because from what I wasn't able to listen to 100% the best I could this week to listen, because it's so fascinating. But where you were talking about that, we come kicking and screaming back into the body. We may not, because the denser you are, the further separated from pure light that you are, the denser you are, the greater the level of experience that you can have. Because you said it this week, and I was so excited to hear you say it. You were talking about the photon and the electron.
Yeah.
They're separated. You have the duality. And, without the duality, you can't have experience. So I think it could just as easily be a treat for us to be here and to be able to come out of the neutrality and come into a physical body and have these experiences and grow as a soul.
Makes sense to me. I mean, this life is, it's an adventure, to say the least.
It is an adventure. This one in particular is an adventure.
So when I'm just going to pull up real quick, and we're just going to use it for a very quick reference so everyone can become associated with the 7 principles. Principle number 1 is mentalism. Principle number 2, correspondence. 3, the principle of vibration. God, I read this and I go, wake up, Wayne. And I'm going, I am awake. Right. The principle of polarity, which is one, if people, Sue, could understand that principle, it would resolve, I think, 70% of most of their conflicts. Mm-hmm. 5, the principle of rhythm. 6, the principle of cause and effect. And finally, the 7th principle of gender. So there we go. I just wanted to point that out so that everyone knows where things start with.
All right.
So I'm going to let you start, because this is something that you are, which I would consider in the corporate world, you would be considered an SME, a subject matter expert.
Well, I don't know about an expert, but.
Well, sure you are.
Here's the thing about it. It's like I'm always saying about you, or, about this whole thing, like the Hermetics put, for me, the inner knowing. It's like, oh, I have this inner knowing. It's like, oh, I think this is how things work. Somehow you get to this, and then you're like, oh my gosh, however many thousands of years ago. No wonder I think like, and also I want to point out really quick, I think that a lot of the principles of all the major wisdom traditions of the religions, but especially Buddhism, there's a lot of Buddhism in the 7 principles. But anyway, I do want to point out some fun stuff before we start, just because me and the numbers.
Yes.
And the gematria. So to me, first of all, the 7 Hermetic principles are basically the foundation for like, you can get rid of that book, The Secret, manifestation. These are the principles of alchemy and magic, because to me, manifestation and magic are exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah.
What is manifesting, but but creating, it's magic. So this is the foundation for magic. And there's the Hermetic seal, right?
Yes.
That's about alchemy, that you seal up the container to whatever you're doing with your alchemy. So the Hermetic seal is interesting. And then number 7 is also really, really interesting here, because the 7 in numerology is about inner awareness, introspection. It's about the truth seeker. And, in the biblical tradition, I think 7 is the spiritual perfection.
Yeah, perfection.
Number.
Yes.
So you think about all the numbers of 7 days of the week. You've got the 7 deadly sins. You've got, in the time of Hermes, there were 7 planets in the solar system, 7 chakras, 7 seals in the book of Revelation, right? And think of all the books, like the 7 habits of highly effective people. I never read that book.
I did.
The 7 spiritual laws, there's 7, right? 7, you see a lot of this.
Yeah.
Sevens. And so I started doing a little bit of gematria before today, but gematria can take me so long. But I found some really fun things, because like I said, I believe that the Hermetic principles are about self-actualization. It's about clearing out. You've got to blend the shadow, the dark, the anger, you had those 12 things that you've got to learn how to blend those with the light. And that, that's basically what these principles are telling you: as above, so below, as within, so without. So if you've got all this going on subconsciously, right? So I looked up the word self-actualization, and it's summed up to, this was fun, 77. Right?
Imagine that.
You love that. And so, it's 7 times 7 being the introspection, inner wisdom number, times 11, which is the spiritual mastery number, is 77. So I thought that was really, really pretty interesting. And then I looked up the word personal power, because basically what this is doing is it's all about empowerment of the self, not to go out there and be a bully, but just to be who you are. That is what personal power is, right? So I looked up personal power, and it summed to 177, which was really awesome. Of course, 1 times 77, but 177 is the 12th Fibonacci number, which the Fibonacci numbers relate to the as above, so below concept. As
below, so above, right?
And the golden ratio, the Fibonacci and the golden ratio are closely tied. When you divide any 2 Fibonacci numbers in sequence, they will sum up to close to the golden ratio. And of course, golden ratio also summed to 177. So I thought that was just really, when I could do these with the numbers and see all this stuff come up, it's, to me, you're onto something, because there are laws of creation.
Yes.
And the golden ratio is one of the, somehow, and I'm not an expert by any means on the golden ratio and the math and all that stuff, but I know, my inner knowing, that, these are the laws of creation. Just, to me, like the 7 Hermetic principles, these are outlining in a way the laws of creation. And I also thought it was fun. Lucky number 7, when you spell it all out, it summed to 770. So I thought that was cool. That's my numbers for the night.
I love that. The synchronicity, the synergy is uncanny.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. When you hit those numbers, and they you see the patterns, you're onto something. You're onto something. You may not exactly know what you're onto, but you're onto something. So
go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that as I look back, 2018 has been a most interesting year. I think that there has been more awareness of knowledge being birthed forth. Not that this knowledge did not exist. It did. But it just seems like there are more of us who are becoming aware of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's life-changing.
It is life-changing. And I think it has to do with the fact that we're in a universal 11 year, personally. That's the spiritual mastery number. So
this is a spiritual 11 year?
It's an 11 year, universal 11 year, 2018 sums up to 11, the 2 and the 8, the 1, 11.
Okay.
Squirrel. Yeah. So it's an 11 year. So you don't reduce it down. Yeah. So it's a spiritual mastery number. So yes. So you hit your, like for me, my birthday's 5 and 4. So it's a 9, and anything you add, 9 is everything and nothing. You add 9 to something and it reduces right back down to itself. So I'm in a personal 11 year, which I love that.
And mine, I was just thinking about it, 619, same thing. It comes to 9.
619 comes to 25, 7.
7.
7.
So a 7.
You were 7 and 11. So that's interesting.
And we sell a good coffee.
I think you would be in a 9 year, which is awesome. That explains a lot to me too. For 9 years, completions and new beginnings. And
Trisha G pointed that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And isn't it odd? I mean, I'm sitting here, and so we're about to go into the fall season tomorrow, fall equinox, and you step back and you go, okay, what's going on here?
According to Rex, apparently we're about to be attacked by the Anunnaki. So I heard a rumor that Rex put something out about it.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know this. My take is this, is that I can't control what's in the heavens. But what I can do is control where my destiny lies and fulfilling that destiny.
You're absolutely right. You can.
And that's why people like yourself, you have the gifting and the insights to help. And these 7 principles, again, are so vitally important. I look at them as a temple, because you have to have what I see are these 7 pillars that come up and makes this very firm foundation. But that's just me.
No, I agree. But then you go into the principles and like you read them, like what you have, and you read them and it's like, oh, what are they talking about here? So I have some stuff to kind of go over.
Well, lead the way. Let's go.
Okay. So, I want to go back to one thing, that I was talking about Hermeticism and alchemy being related, and they, both of them involve a lot of the number 7. I find it really interesting. So, and alchemy is about change and altering and, becoming something, something other than. And so to me, everything is all just a big circle.
Well, if you want to become a master, and that is my goal, I'm already a teacher. I know that. I was told that 40 years ago that I had the gift of teaching. Yeah. And so, hello, Trisha G. How are you? Welcome. Boy, I haven't seen Trish in a while. We'll have to get you on, Trish. Please email me. But Sue, the thing is, I want to become a master. And this relates exactly what you were talking about, alchemy. Alchemy is the 7 principles.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It is. That's what I'm saying. It's the foundation for magic itself, for whatever magic you want to practice, because you have to have a handle on all of these principles in order to be able to effectively be magical or to effectively manifest. So,
So now I'll just make a little confession to everyone here and everyone that watches this later. It's actually everything that I've been producing has been leading to that, is to begin to graduate a new group of initiates that are students of the Hermetic principles, magic, alchemy.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Is that Wayne's School of Hermeticism, I think.
There we go. All right. So you've got the floor, because this is your wheelhouse.
All right. So I'm just going to go over each of these.
Good.
Just really quick, to me, to simplify it, because I like things a little more simple, so I can make them more practical and grounded. Because when you read the old writing, it doesn't that come across as that practical. But mentalism, I don't think I need to go into a lot on mentalism, right? Everything is in the mind. We are the thought of the creator, and our thoughts mirror the creator. We create like the creator creates. Maybe not quite as powerfully, but our thoughts create just like the creator creates.
Well, I'll add to that, as I said yesterday, if we are not on the mind of the creator, we don't exist.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thought. And in that, to me, that makes it healing of that sort of inner wound, that core wound.
Yes, it does.
You know, right there. But, you know, because you think about it, where we all get like the collective thought, you know, everybody suddenly comes up with these same thoughts. And why is like Hermeticism suddenly, you know, having a resurgence, or why, you know, why is it everybody on YouTube starts talking about the same topic at the same, you know, it's all the thoughts, and, you know, so that is the mentalism, and that it's like the foundation of everything. Just for
it is
right there. Without being a thought of the source, we wouldn't exist.
And it's not coincidental.
No.
I think that you know, as one of the principles teaches, the fact that you leave something to random chance means that is just undisciplined chaos.
Right. Absolutely.
I never thought of that.
And that's because, to me, that's because of the second principle of correspondence, which is the as above, so below, as within, so without. But the as within is the tricky part, because you're talking about the conscious thought and the subconscious thought. And you're talking about the emotional body, which to me, most of the emotional body is generated out of the heart, which I've talked about before. I think I may have been with you. And the heart, you know, pumps out more electromagnetic energy than the brain. So the heart is a much better creator when you get into the law of vibration down there a little further, right? So if you're in alignment, in your subconscious and your conscious are in alignment, that's powerful creating. But if you're undisciplined, like you were just saying, and you're just letting things go, and you're not paying attention to what your inner process is and what your subconscious is doing, that is creating equally or greater than your conscience. So you can be...
Sue, I'm being hit with this. So as within, as without, right? So if we're at a balance with the inner, and that begins to reflect more of what's happening on the outside instead the other way around, that could put people into a damn tailspin.
Bingo. Hence the world we live in.
Yeah. Hell, that's the dog chasing his tail.
It is. And that's why, you know, we were talking before the show, like, this is when I work, you know, I don't like to talk about, I don't like to say I do readings per se, because it isn't really what I do when I work with people. It's more about bringing into awareness the subconscious aspects of these. And, you know, it's pretty simple to me. The core woundings are pretty basic. And just to bring into inner awareness to them, if I can get someone to have some slight awareness of something that's going on that they didn't have before, and all the rest of the stuff that comes out, that's a success to me. That's what, like, my Shusta cards are all about. I was saying the word Shusta means footsteps back to God, according to the creator. But it's a Sanskrit word. When I looked it up, it means to purify. And what were you talking about today? But purity of thought.
The 12 steps that we begin to get purified. And
purity to me is integration.
Yeah.
Because as if you're living in duality, which is another principle, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but if you're living in duality, you're going to have both. So you cannot judge one as good and the other as bad, because then you're into judgment, and it's a circle. It's a loop.
Yes.
What I call the mind loop. So,
ooh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can move on to the third, is the which is one of my favorites, the law of vibration.
Ooh.
I love the law of vibration.
Now, I know many
vibrates.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked about this as a group. I see a lot of people in here. Folks, we dealt deep in this a year and a half ago. Vibration, frequency, harmonics, healing of the body. And now come to find out, this is thousands and thousands and thousands of years old knowledge that they were saying, hey. So go on.
And then don't get me started on all that crap about how Christianity.
Oh, No.
But we won't go there. Not on this talk. We're not going there.
So vibration.
Vibration.
Yes.
Everything moves. Everything vibrates. You know, you were talking about how we will go back to being light bodies. We are still light bodies.
Yes.
Right? We're just dense light bodies. So that's, you know, but everything rests. And so we as above, so below, you know, we can apply the principles of vibration, even, you know, when we're in this very dense light body, as we can when we're in the light body, wherever the light bodies are.
So, you know, as you were talking, I understand auroras around people now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I've been told that I have this blue-white, you know, aurora, that this is okay. Continue this. You see, it's all
okay. You're talking about color. You know, color is a vibration. It's a frequency,
it is,
right? Music is frequency. You know, and then, you know, you talk about like synchronicities. So where we're vibrating, what I was talking about, where we're vibrating in our body, and it's all of our body, but, you know, especially in the subconscious and the heart center, what we vibrate with, where we resonate is what we draw to us. So if we're drawing some kind of negative experience, it's because it's reflecting to us something that's going on inside of us, right?
Yeah.
It's what we're resonating with. And and the gift in that, as ugly as some of it may seem, is that it's reflecting to us some sort of wounding, basically, that we have. Because what's interesting is, I was thinking about this today, and also today I was laughing because I do those daily on the Soul Source Intuitives channel. Yes, I do those daily vibe readings, and I record them on Saturday for the week. And today's was empowerment and meditation, the two cards that came out, which is like
empowerment and meditation.
Blew my mind, which is exactly what we're talking about tonight. Is empowerment.
That's what Hermes says. You know, without contemplation, you can never touch the mind of God.
And earlier in the week, the childlike card came out, and it came out with, and you've been talking about being childlike, but if we can take an experience, to me, this is learns to step back from judgment. So like the first time you were cut off in traffic as a driver, what was your reaction? It was probably shock, and you were a little scared, and, you know, but there wasn't, you know, you didn't get angry that very first time because you've never had that experience. There's nothing to associate it with. There's no judgment of what went on. So if you're driving in traffic and you get cut off or you see something, it's like, try to put yourself back into that. That's never happened to me before state, and just view it as the first time you've ever seen it. That's why when you were saying be childlike, that's what it's talking about. Because what happens is we get triggered on old experiences and old wounding. And it's just, like I said, it's just a gift to us to be, you know, to be shown you have this issue. It's a control issue. It's a, you know, whatever it is when you're getting cut off. I speak about that because that's one of my traffic.
And now most people have the tendency to allow the anger to come over and give the people what your IQ level is as they're driving away.
And I love that you brought up anger, because it goes back to what I was saying about anger is a useful and a beautiful emotion. The problem comes in when you project it out at that person, that you project it out because it's triggering back to some old experience that you had. If it was the first time, you probably wouldn't get angry. You would, like I said, be shocked, be kind of bewildered, and it'd be just like, you don't learn to be angry until you get older. So you're projecting that out. So, you know, what you can do with anger is use it to somehow, you know, change yourself or see, oh my gosh, this makes me angry. And anger is a powerful, motivating force for change. That's what anger is. But it's about inner change, or it's about changing, how to really put this, you know, where you see a need for change. To me, that gets into judgment. It gets a little convoluted, but you see what I'm saying? Anger is a powerful, and all the emotions have their uses. So there's no good emotion and no bad emotion, which brings us into polarity, which is the next one that I love so much. Because you were saying it, everything is dual. Everything is duality. We can't.
Hermes says that you have to embrace and accept opposites.
You do. You have to. You have to. But the key to it, this is why, I believe that the word love has more to do with just pure acceptance. You don't have to have these warm, fuzzy feelings. It's just acceptance and neutrality. That's it. That's, to me, the greatest amount of love you could ever give someone. It's like, Wayne, you're free to be you. No matter what I see, that you be you, and I'm neutral about whatever choices or decisions you make, or your kids, anything. That's,
until an individual learns to accept opposites, you can never become a god.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll never be able to have the ability to weigh balance.
That's right. Yeah. And it's difficult because, like I was telling you, yes.
Mind blown.
It's like I was telling you before this, I had someone end their friendship with me because I said, I was talking about this principle of duality. We can't have one without the other. We can't feel joy without pain. We can't feel the heights of that aspect of love without, the hate and the fear. We can't have the experience because you have nothing to gauge it with. When you get to all good and light and love, it's just neutrality because you have nothing to gauge it against.
Well, here's the challenge that we'll be studying next week. Define for me where good and evil start and stop.
Yep. It's all about perspective.
We can think of the most heinous crime a man can do to another man, but nevertheless, it's still an emotion. It's still hate or love, which are equally joined to each other. You can't separate them.
Yeah. And that's really the hardest to me. That aspect of duality is really the hardest one to deal with, because if something happened to yourself, and you were a victim somehow, but you see people who are victims all the time really step up and take power over that event.
Yeah.
The key to it, you have to have the experience. You have to go through the emotional process and have them all. That's what you're having that experience for, is to go through the process. I mean, that's...
Well, you bring up so much a good point, because this law of opposites, if we could understand the law, because it is a law, it's a principle, which means that it saturates all existence.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about this. You're harmed, you're betrayed, you're physically assaulted.
Yeah.
You're mentally assaulted. How do you handle that? Now, society teaches that you have the right to become, as a victim, for retribution, for judgment, and then they start trying to apply how to heal you, but they never really get into that. But if a person can understand that, listen, I was merely a part of this principle. I don't like what happened to me. Exactly. I think it was wrong.
Yes.
But in order for me to ascend, I'm going to have to be able to see both sides.
Yep.
Okay, Sue.
Yep, that's spot on. And it's like, how do you do that is the hard thing. And
Boy.
Well, sometimes,
Well, how do you do that?
Well, I don't know exactly.
Well, tell me.
I like to think, well, here's some of the things that I do is like, well, there's a lot of dark on this planet right now, right? There's a lot of, we are always getting into the they and the controllers and the this and the that. And I'm always like, I'm so happy that they're doing that, because if they weren't doing that, then I couldn't be light. Right? There's that. But it's truth, because, and it's cause and effect is the number 6 one, for every action, there's an equal reaction. So to me, every amount of good that you do, somewhere else, there's a reaction to keep things in balance. It's all about yin and yang. It's all about the balance. We cannot have one without the other. So these people that are out there doing heinous things, thank God they're doing it, because I don't have to.
Now, that's a hard precept for people to take, and in fact, I'm contemplating it right now.
I know. Please don't end our friendship because
No,
I'm not saying that I can practice that, but
no, but it makes perfect sense. I mean, we've got 7.5 billion minds out there now. And, if everyone was on this tilt, listen, eventually the individual will either make it or they won't. I mean, the ascension of the spirit, it's all defined. But here's the point. It would be like this upside down if there was just all good. I mean, we would get lost in the definition of what good would be.
Exactly. Like I was saying, it would just be neutrality. There would be nothing. We would just be neutral. There would be no gauging of. So it has to exist. And you can look at the animal kingdom, and they have the hunters, the predators, eat the prey, and they murder the prey, and nobody judges them. That nobody judges them for that. It's just and they're neutral about it, and they just go on. It's like, oh, look, there's Mom. Sorry.
I had a listener on my radio show write me, and I talked about it today. She said, explain to me why God or a Tom would create a food chain. Because we're either eating something alive or we're eating something dead in order to stay alive.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there's the principle right there.
Here's a good question in the chat. Are these laws only of this dimension, or do these laws or principles exist in all the dimensions? And if you read the mentality one, it talks about all dimensions, the as above, so below. It would permeate through all of dimensions, all space and time. But there is no such thing as time. Which reminds me of a point that I wanted to make too about time. You're talking about time being there's no past. There's no future, and really there's no present. So what is there? And what there is the experience.
Yeah.
The experience in the moment. That's what it's about. It's not about the time, not about the present. It's about the experience.
It is. By the way, my poor wife, she says, she says, time out. But I was saying to her, because I was reading the harmonica on the actual writings, and I was blown away, because one of the principles that Hermes teaches is that there is no beginning. In order for there to be a beginning means that we've been living a lie and that God does not exist. And the deception starts right off with the Christian Bible. It says, in the beginning. That's a lie. There is no beginning.
Right. That's true.
Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there about time. Time is merely something that we participate in. I wrote to Jeff Doherty this week. I said, we actually flow through time.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I love that too. The flowing through time, and I'm not very good at it, but I love the concept.
Well, but we're all putting to this. I mean, it adds to our memories. One of the things in the Tibetan Book of the Dead is that Buddha teaches that we have to understand what time is. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Buddhism, and speaking of Buddhism, when we talk about this principle of the duality thing, and then we'll move on. When you think about past lives, what have you done in past lives? What, if we were in a body before, have we spent a lifetime where we were the darker, you know what I'm saying? So, there's that concept too. I mean, who knows what sort of quote unquote karma you have going on in this lifetime.
Well, let's extend this. As you were talking, it just hit me. You know why there can't be a devil, a Lucifer, a Satan, or a God? Because here's where the religious theology and ideology come. They try to separate the personification into two when it's one.
Yeah.
The God that is God is both the loving God and the murderous God.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And it doesn't judge. It doesn't care one way or the other whether we end up on this end of the spectrum or that end of the spectrum, because it knows it's always going to come back into balance. It's just
and people get lost in that. They say, well, how can you say that there is no devil? I mean, evil exists. Yeah, it does. So does good. but it's not the personification of a deity.
Yeah.
It's mental, folks.
It's judgment. That's what the devil is. It is judgment, judgment.
Judging itself.
Yes, that is.
I mean, I was reading in the Gospel of Mary, and part of her writings is that the Christ came to show us a path of how to get about where we once were, back to where we were. And you become very convinced that God is insane in one way.
Well, now we know why.
Well, how do we know why? And, you know, these are deep thoughts, folks. Listen, I get it. You know, this is deep, deep thinking here. And, you know, student beware. It's the sign that.
Also, just throwing thoughts out there. It's not, you know, it's not. It's
well,
just
that's
like,
what we used to do. In
context of the material and, you know, now just basically life experience. It's like, you know, this could be, but I don't know. I don't know anything. Ultimately, does anybody really know anything that teaches anywhere? You know, no, it's all just.
Well, that's what Solomon wrote at the end of his life. He said, all is in vain. You know, that's what he said. It's just, it's all in vain.
Let's just quit the show now.
It's just, you know, just give it up. But here's the point. If we look back in the cities back in pre-first century, because they were much more enlightened back then, they had public forums, amphitheaters, where people would meet each day and they would discuss these things. They would talk about them. They would debate these things. And this is how knowledge and civility emerges in a society. Mm-hmm. It's when we become so bigoted in our thinking, Sue, that where we draw lines, that it trips us up. Ooh, Steiger, that was good.
You should write that down.
I should write that down. All right, let's continue. This is good. This is good.
And this, you know, to me, we just flow right into the next one, which is, you know, what I was saying before is about, you know, it's about rhythm. Everything flows. It's like I was saying, it doesn't care. Source doesn't care because he knows I'm just going to call him he. I'm sorry. It's too much programming. It's flows back, you know, it's a pendulum. It swings back and forth. Civilizations rise, civilizations fall. It's the law. It is, you know, everything has the tides that come in, the tides go out. You look at nature and you see the rhythms. That, I mean, and it's true.
So let's combine the last one to this one. As you were just thinking, when a man and a woman or a couple come together, they immediately begin to vibrate on the same rhythm, the same frequency. Mm-hmm. And I can see that also where it goes with the mind of God itself.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
If I'm vibrating at that rhythm and that frequency, guess what? I'm going to be in unionship.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You really are. And I love that concept, the concept of, you know, if you just ask for a flash, you know, that you were talking about the flash from.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that's about all really our physical bodies can handle at any one time. Is probably just about a flash.
Flash of
that. But I think that we can, you know, I think we can get in sync with it. And I believe that. I
do believe we can.
And like you said, all you have to do is ask and, you know, close your eyes for a minute. And
Sue, I just thought of something. Imagine if we are disciplined enough where we have now disciplined the soul and the body, that at the moment of death, what we focus in on is that vibration, that frequency.
It's genius. You should write a book, Wayne.
Damn.
Because you're right. I mean,
it just suddenly made sense to me. I'm going to write this down afterwards, because if a person at that moment of departure begins to prepare his mind and his soul and his spirit and begin to think the frequency and vibration of God, holy shit. Yeah. I mean, excuse me. That's profound, Sue. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That was really, you know, and it is all about rhythm, right? You were just talking about, you know, just get it right in the rhythm with that frequency and you flow out. And then if you want, you flow. I believe that a lot of us, I think you included. I believe a lot of us are here by choice.
Probably.
To try to maybe be of assistance. I do believe that. I think
it's apparent something's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I had 31 emails this week from the readings of the Hermetica, excuse me, and every one of them said how their lives had been profoundly changed. They were having dreams, the clarity of thought, things were becoming, how shall we say, revealed to them. Quite amazing.
It is amazing. It's an awesome service that you're doing to people.
So. Well, it's all of us. I mean,
I guess, yeah.
Well, sure it is. Sue, I listen to your recordings, and it helps me.
That's what I'm saying about. This is my wheelhouse. That's what I'm all about. So
you are.
Channel, that's what it's all about. Even though when you do that type of work, there's a certain aspect that has to be involved. If I can get one or two people if I have we have like 151 subscribers, it's not a really popular way.
We're going to build that up. Come on, folks. Let's build this up to over 1,000. That's what we should do.
If there are 20 people that it benefits, then it's absolutely worth it to me, because really, like I was saying, maybe it might have been on your show last time I was here, when we get in tune, when we start moving through this and get into our authentic selves, when we start dropping off all of our wounding and our patterns, and we move into what is our authentic self and our authentic purpose. I mean, we always want to share it. Yeah. Right. That's what, every time I see someone that stumbles on to, oh my gosh, I have this or I have that, and I can help. We always want to share our gift.
Yes, we do.
It's programming. It's cause and effect, which is the next one.
Yes, cause and effect. Now, Buddhism focuses very heavily on cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to go to the last one, because cause and effect, to me, every cause and effect is pretty self-explanatory. The last one, gender, everything. Gender isn't everything.
Yeah.
So to me, I think about that. I always think about when I work, to me, what I want to say is a level that would be closer to source, like with my higher self. I get no sense of gender, and I get no sense of gender from the creator, but as above, so below, there has to be gender. It has to be gender there.
As I read this week, when we get into these bodies, the keeper of the souls that puts us into these bodies knows which gender we're going to be best suited for, because we were of no gender and will be of no gender when we return.
Right. The body itself won't be of gender, or it will be both genders probably in much more balance, probably, since we have more of the polarity here. And it's, self-mastery from being able to balance the two, being able to balance the masculine and the feminine. You have too much masculine energy. And I have to laugh, because I saw the show the other night with the Forbidden Knowledge. Is that the name?
Yeah. Chris,
you and
Jay Campbell and Jeff
and Charlie.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the guy's name is, but I was just getting a big chuckle, because it's like all this testosterone coming off of
saturating the airways.
And the two that had the most feminine energy were the two that had the least amount of hair, which is you and Charlie. And I find that ironic, because usually hair is, attributed to higher testosterone when you have less hair, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was funny, because
I just tell people I have wavy hair. It was just waving goodbye. But
too much masculine energy without a balance of feminine leads to growth of power, to extreme reckless abandon, where we lose perspective of what is most important. I mean, look at the world today, right? It's too heavy on the masculine. But if you're too heavy on the feminine without a balance of masculine, leads to a life grounded so deeply in the present that our lives become determined by the cycles and external circumstance. So, you're not, just like kind of what you were saying, you're just letting everything happen. And that makes sense to me. Women or the feminine is just being, is just existence. That's feminine. The masculine is the doing energy.
Yeah.
And you can't be all the time, as much as fun as it would be to just have someone waiting on you hand and foot all the time. You can't just be. You've got to do and be.
You can never be a god if that's the case.
Right. Both, and both, same with both people. You can't do all the time. Sometimes you have to be, sometimes you have to receive. It's also about the paradigm of giving and receiving. Sometimes you have to give and sometimes you have to receive. And sometimes receiving is its act of giving, if that makes sense. So,
well, it does. And here's where Western culture has done a great disservice to our species, is that we're not taught that if males only understood, our vitality comes from the feminine. And the feminine gets their energy from the male, the masculine.
Yeah, it's true.
But we play these games, and it starts out very early in life where we want to dominate one another. And we go through our whole lives. That's why marriages typically break up. That's why relationships go so often south, because you have one or the other person trying to dominate the other.
Right. And you see that, to me, you see that a lot in the modern, because the women, the female, we aren't raised to be feminine in a feminine energy anymore. We're raised in a more masculine energy where you get a job and you do everything and you're doing. And then it took me a lot of years to learn this. And then, but so women are, and then they get into relationship and they're acting like the man should be in relationship. It's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you can't, if you want to be the feminine in relationship, and you don't have to be the man to be the feminine or the woman, you could be the feminine in your relationship and your wife could be the masculine if that works for you.
Yeah. I mean,
but one has to be the feminine and the other has to be the masculine in order for the relationship to work. And of course, it's going to go back and forth at times as well. It's all about balance. It
is. And sometimes you're like on a teeter-totter.
Yeah, exactly. You're on a teeter-totter. It's never going to be perfect. So.
I told Lynn, just don't jump off without me knowing.
I don't think she ever would.
No, but we've all had that experience as a kid, Anyway, I digress on that. So as we look at this, 7 principles applied to life. I mean, Sue, I think that if we could begin to expound on this, and I'm sure it's going to migrate to other channels, and there's others out there that probably already out there.
But you don't see a lot of it, and to me, I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research on it. I do my own research, and so I haven't looked on YouTube. I mean, there are hermetic organizations and whatnot, but I don't know that they necessarily do it. A lot of people focus on the magical aspects of it. To me, like I said, it's all about the self-actualization. And you talked about what did you call them? The 12 distractions, the anger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
They were distractions.
Yep. That's what they are.
To me, it's about self-acceptance and integration of all those 12. And you said replace those with understanding. So when you can understand the emotion and understand where it's coming from, that's when you have mastery over the emotion, and you can use the emotion for self-actualization. And, once you start dropping these layers of basically projecting all this stuff out and start dropping, and you start working with the shadow side, that's when you get into your true self. You really find what's your true authentic self, dropping all the programming and all that crap. So that's to me, like the big, to bring it all together, because you got all these principles and it's like, oh my God, here we go again. But really it's about self-actualization. And when you run into something and you're being triggered, you can look at the principles and go, which one am I doing here? Is it duality? Is it polarity? Is it, the masculine, the feminine? What is it? And then you can just have an objective look at it. And maybe you won't be so triggered.
Well, I'm glad you used that example, because I've been practicing. And, sometimes when you get news, all of us react in different ways. But you can tell your body is reacting by the way that you can see it, how you take that news. And I'm talking positive or negative. And so what I've been doing is learning to, as Hermes said, if you can get into the place where you can calm it, you're mastering it.
Awesome. When you get to a place where you can calm it.
Calm it. Yeah. CALM. Calm.
Oh, calm it. I thought you said
Yeah.
calm it. I'm like, oh, yeah.
No. Calm. If you can calm it. If you can calm the emotional response,
Yes.
positive or negative.
Exactly. If you can just calm it so that you can just at least move into inner awareness, you know, and then it moves into where, to me, to like the more Buddhist practices where it's about detachment. Or non-attachment to things, because attachment to an outcome or attachment to a thing, or it's, you know, that's a very unhealthy place to be. It's unhealthy to be attached because you're clutching at it. You're not allowing for the flow. And you know, Buddhism talks about the absence of desire. So it's not that you don't have like a thought that, okay, I'm trying to accomplish this, but it's that inner sort of desire is where we get into trouble. And I was talking to Claudette this week. She's so awesome.
Yes.
And she had some great, and I hope she doesn't mind. If you're still in here, Claudette, I hope it's okay. But she gave me.
Claudette has been with us from the very beginning.
I hope it's okay that I give these quotes, because I believe she said she got these from her grandmother. And she said, want what you have and have what you want.
Ooh.
So Grandma, if you already want what you have, you already, you understand the circle there. Oh, she said, go for it. Thank you. So I think that's perfect. It's like, yeah, everything that I have is perfect. I don't want anything else. Right. And she also said, this one was a little trickier to understand, but it's beautiful. Give away the best of what you have, and you will still always have the best of what's left. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
That one is so awesome. It's like, yeah, if you give away the best that you have, you still have the best because you have the best of what you have left. And it's non-attachment. I mean, why I heard is Patrick, I think Patrick is here too. He told a story about, something with his car either getting vandalized or an accident. And he was like totally detached from the whole situation where, we're having massive storms here. So like all my bells.
Oh, wow. Are you okay?
He was saying, he was totally detached. There was no judgment. He was just, okay, I've got to, fix this or do that or.
Well, I just want to share, folks, by the way, Claudette, your grandmother, she has made it. She's already back to the happy place. No doubt. She had figured it out. And so, I perform, it's not magic, but I do things where I will bring favor upon a situation. And there is a process that I go through. But the point is that when you begin to lift up your enemies and call favor down upon them, you begin to find out how easy it is to let things go.
That's awesome. And that is magic.
Well, it is magic.
It's magic. It's okay. We're so programmed against that word.
Well, it is. And
by design.
Yeah, because you hear, the next thing, we're coming into October. So, the mainstream media will continue the programming, but it is magic, and it truly is. And I think it's that type of magic that invokes, what I really want to see with our whole group, Sue, I want to see people healed. I want to see them begin to have the healing both in the spirit, the soul, and the mind, and the body. Because I think before they can be healing their bodies, they have to heal the soul.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit more on that?
Well, I mean, all disease, disease is a
divided peace. And that's what disease is, divided peace.
It's a manifestation of some held, stuck belief system that you have, negative belief system. I even get to the point where I have trouble with negative and positive, because it's just, it's a reflection of a belief system. A lot of times people that, like people that work really, they're very type A and work really hard. They don't spend a lot of time working on their heart, in their emotional life. They will have heart attacks, right? Yep. Because the body's reflecting to them where they're stuck in their energy, cancer, all those, you can heal that stuff with your mind.
You can
heal that stuff well with your, if you do the emotional work, you can do it. I know you can do it. I'm not great at it yet, but I'm working on it.
It works. It works.
It does work.
It does work. I mean, I've had the gift of healing. I lay hands on people, and I have a particular knack for anything to do with the brain or the head. And yeah, so anyway, yeah.
Can you do it remotely?
I've been practicing, but I got to be candid with you. I have shied away from more into that area and just been focusing on the knowledge. Now, I have no doubt that there will be a time when, part of the test will be.
That's what I love. That's what I love about you. It's like, we've always had this sort of dichotomy.
I know it.
And we're just like,
but it works.
It does. It does. But and to me, that really speaks to the 7 principles again. I mean, it's about, you have to integrate the knowledge, the knowing, and the inner awareness. You have to be able to really integrate the two. That's one thing that I've really learned from watching you in my own process, where you'll say something like with the proton and the electron. It happens all the time. You'll put something scientific, and I'll go, yes, that's the scientific aspect to it, because it is, as within, so without. It all, it's truth. Yeah. Every time you say something, you can go back to one of the principles and go, yes, it's that one. Oh, it's that one.
Exactly. And that's what I'm seeing. And I'm telling you, I believe as well as we continue to get better at this as a group, we're going to see, I think, some phenomenal things happen. I'm just convinced of it. It says it will happen because the energies, the rhythms, the vibrations become synced.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. The Wayne Steiger School of Hermeticism.
Well.
I love it.
Well, if that's what we can do, then listen, I think that this is the type of knowledge that it's ready to come out. And Sue, it's people like you, Trisha G. I can just think of so many others that if we could just all come together and focus in on this as a community, as a group, we'll lift this group up. And I swear, I think that this will have a vibration across the world.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like this, the more we're putting this thought energy out into the collective, the more people are going to pick up on it. I mean, that's how it works. Get back into mentalism.
And then the work that you've done with individuals, what have you found to be one of the biggest barriers for them to overcome?
Well, lack of awareness.
Lack of awareness.
Yeah, because I'll see something, and they don't want to admit to themselves that they're not open to this, or they're not open to that. Typically, it relates to relationship, and they don't want to see that they need to step back and let go, or of anything. You need to sell their house. Well, you're energetically, they're holding on to the house because they have some sort of attachment to it. They have some sort of attachment to it, and they need to work on that attachment. And usually it has to do with inner child. Or to me, it's usually inner child work. There's some sort of security or safety, or but they don't want to hear. People don't want to do the work, or they don't understand what you're talking about, or it's too out there. So that's really the biggest.
As you were talking, I had the mental image of Gulliver's Travel and the Lilliputians. Here's this giant that's laid to the ground, and what he's being held down by are the simple strings of our possessions, and our possession of inner. We put walls up, to protect us, and what we're not realizing, we're entombing ourselves even more.
Yeah. That's exactly right. You put up the walls and you put up the barriers, and it's not, and the thing about it is the core wounding happens when you're so young that you may or may not remember what the event was. And we all have it. It doesn't matter how great your childhood was or how great your parents were. There's always, the wounding is always there. It's what makes us who we are. It's really the beauty of life in it.
It is.
In a twisted way. It really is.
It is. It is. And I can remember when I used to be a road warrior in sales, that I would listen to Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, and Earl Nightingale. And I remember particularly one time with Brian Tracy, he was talking about the one thing that hinders most adults is that they've never let the inner child grow up.
That's right. Absolutely.
And so many constrictions that we have is because we haven't let that child go.
That's right.
You know.
And you can go in there and parent the inner child yourself and give, bring that. If you can give that inner child, I was like, bring it to tea and play with it, have a little, it's in a mental image. If you can let that have some life, it eases the situation so much. And someone's asked a question about what about attachment in the case of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in it, and it's the very same principles apply. Non-attachment is a greater way to love, quote unquote, love someone than the attachment of like always having to have them there, if that makes sense. It's about letting each individual go to be who they're going to be. And they, in a relationship, you're your own individual little people. And if you come together and you're able to flow through life together, being individuals, because attachment, and in the terms that I'm talking about, it speaks to trying to control that person to be something that they may or may not. You've got to let them go to be who they are, if that makes sense.
Well, I can just quote Sting, if you love somebody, let them go. So anyway, that's what you have to do. And I'll just share a little story with you on how to heal and allow the inner child to grow. I formed a place in my mind where I was in the woods. It's fall. The leaves are everywhere. And I met my inner child sitting on a log. And it was quite the experience talking to myself, that child of mine, and finally telling him, it's okay. You're not going to get hurt. You don't have to be afraid. The big bad wolf is gone, and it's okay. And we hugged, and, there was a unionship.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Might help some people out there,
Right. And I'll go in and I'll see several, this wound or that wound, or mine sits on a rock. My sad one she sits on a rock by the water, kind of like your log. Yeah.
They see, that's weird. We didn't talk about this, folks.
Who knew we'd get into inner child work on the
Well, but you know what? It has to begin somewhere.
Yeah.
It really does. Otherwise, the circle just will continue the revolution. And we are destined to be above the revolution of the gods. We're to ascend that. And you can't begin to ascend it until you start addressing it.
Right. Absolutely. You're right. You cannot until you can acknowledge it and give it some awareness. Awareness is most of the battle, to be honest.
It is most of the battle. It is.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Sue,
yes.
This hour has gone by.
It has.
I put both of your YouTube channels in the description, and you do work. And how can people get in touch with you?
I'll send you my website is up and running, so they can email me at either at Sue G. Well, it'd be easier to just email.
Just give it to me and I'll post it in there.
Okay, I'll email it to you. And I'll put it in the chat, but yeah.
You do that. Okay. Put that. Because folks, listen, all of us need work. I mean, you're going to be working on yourself even after this. It never stops. It doesn't. So I think that we can have higher degrees, but I think the higher that we strive for, the more challenges that are going to be before us.
Absolutely. Yep. And the deeper you get, the deeper the more layers that you peel away, the deeper and harder it gets. So it's never an easy process. And you make a good point. You're always working, and you can do it alone, but why do it alone when you have resources out there that can help you? Everybody needs help. with their growth at some point in time or another. And, it's not, it doesn't have to be the lengthy, you don't have to go to counseling and go through that whole, go through some really simple processes to just
and you said simple, and it really is. Sometimes it's
simple.
just that simple. I love it. Well, all right, folks, you put it in the chat room. And I'll put it in the description down below. And this has been fun, Sue. We need to do this more.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's like I told you, I'm so passionate about this topic because it's like, this is so, to me, the key to this whole self-actualization, which is the key to, like you're saying, to up the ladder to source. And
well, the prophecy is that for those to whom this was prepared for, it will bring enlightenment. And for those to whom it is not, it will be nothing more than chatter.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's just how it is. I don't understand that, but then again, I don't know how many times people have been through or not. I got a sense for the greater part, most of the people here, you have a beautiful, what they would call the white essence of the covering of your soul. You're going to make it.
That's awesome. I think so too. I think, anyone that's here that can understand what the 7 Hermetic principles, you're in.
You're in. And I'll tell you, we'll meet in the other side. We'll have a party. We'll track down some of the bands I have a theory that, my theory is that everything has a cycle, and that in when electricity was put to sound, it invoked a latent part of us consciously on a species level. And this is what we got with rock and roll, the way music changed. And that was a period. That period has now gone because my evidence is the old classic rock and roll still rocks.
Yeah, this is true.
All right. Sue, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank everyone here. Thanks all to...
It's been a really awesome chat room, as always. Your chat room is always awesome.
Is it? I don't get to see it that often, but thank you for telling me that. I don't know. I mean, people write to me, the guests that have had on and other people who come visit, and they say, what is with your group? They're like the kindest, intelligent people. They're supportive. And I said, well, I didn't do it. They did.
Yes, you did, Wayne. As within, so without.
So without. There you go.
As within, so without. Just take it. It's a compliment.
All right. Sometimes, I love giving, but I have the hardest time receiving.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, it shows, doesn't it? You see, I got work to do.
You do. We all have work to do.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you all. So much love to y'all. Light. We're going to do fine. I'll tell you what, Sue. And will you come back on?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. And thanks everybody in the chat for being so supportive. It's appreciated.
Yep. Come on, let's build up her YouTube channel, folks. Listen, we can build that up by 1,000 real quick. So let's just do that. We need to support everyone. If you got a YouTube channel, let us know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll just make it a little incestuous little group. Sue, take care of yourself. I'll see you again real soon, okay? Everyone, take care. Bye-bye, everyone.